Good evening, iRock Jazz viewers, listeners, and family. Welcome to tonight's show. I'm your host, Vanessa Condi, coming to you from Miami, Florida. Tonight we're going to have a fun chat, something a little different. We're going to chat with an accomplished and celebrated comic animation creator and illustrator. But before we get started, I want to remind you to help support the iRock Jazz family. Share our social media links, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Spreecast. Also follow our website, irockjazz.com, so you can find out about these upcoming interviews, jazz festivals, and events. There's a chat line right on the side of your screen that's going to allow you to submit your questions so we can ask them to our guests tonight. So make sure that you do that because that's what these chat shows are really all about. Now let's get started. It's my pleasure to introduce comic book artist Denys Cowan.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Vanessa.
Hey, how are
Good,
you?
good,
Thank you for joining us tonight. How you
very good. It's
doing?
great to be here. This is very exciting. Even though it's the State of the Union night,
Yeah.
we're here. So that's pretty cool.
Yes, I know. Sorry to President Obama.
I
We
know
know
we're
that it's
pulling
a very
views away
important
from
night
him,
for
but
him.
hey, it's just the way it is. Comics are important.
Well, I'm very excited about tonight's chat because I really don't know a great deal about the comic book world other than the obvious and the basic heroes, that have been part of my
Mhm.
upbringing, the Supermans and the Batmans and the Spider-Mans of the world. So I'm really interested to hear about what you do in the comic book world and how and the projects that you work on and what makes you so different in the industry. So let's get started with a little bit of you telling us about yourself, your background, where you
Mhm.
grew up, where
Mhm.
you're from.
Well, my background, I'm from New York. I'm a New Yorker. I'm a native New Yorker, born in Queens, New York. Um, Yay, Queens!
Yay!
I have um, I have brothers and sisters who I love very much. They're great. I know my sister Cecil's watching now. Hi, Cecil. And various family members are watching. I I grew up middle class. Just middle class black kid, and I went to a elementary school in Queens, and then from there I went into a specialized high school where they taught us different things, art and a lot of creativity and a lot of creative studies. And I should backtrack. When I was like 8 years old, I decided I wanted to be a comic book artist. I wanted to be an artist. I didn't know how I was going to be a comic book artist. I didn't even know people really drew comics, but that's all I did. From a little kid, I just drew little comic strips, drew little comic strips. When I had the chance to go to an art high school, it was a choice between two, music and art and design. Art and design, music and art was the Fame High School. Fame, I'm gonna live forever. And then art and design was where you went if you wanted a job in art. So I went to art and design and started working when I was in high school, basically, as an artist. I know
Okay.
it's
Yes.
crazy, but I was 14 and I
Yes, that
started
is pretty
working as an
amazing.
artist while I was in high school studying art. So it was kind of unusual, but I was very fortunate.
Yes. So you actually answered a couple of my
Ah,
next
yeah.
questions. Like what? Okay. So at 8 years old, you knew you wanted to do
Mhm.
comic books and illustrate. Why was that? What was it that influenced you at that age to want to do that? To know so young that that's
Combination
what
of
you wanted to
things I
do?
think about now. Probably watching the Superman TV show with George Reeves, Superman,
Hmm.
and my
Hmm.
mom was an artist, and she would draw and paint
Okay.
all the time in her free time. Is that what she did for a living? This is what she did for a hobby. So I was watching my mom draw, and I just started drawing. I think that's pretty much how it started. But then
Okay.
I just kept doing it. So
And who were your favorite comic book heroes
when I
at
was
that
growing
time?
up, I had a few.
Yeah.
Jack Kirby was the first one. The people who read comics, know who he is. John Buscema. Uh, gosh, Jim Steranko. I liked a lot more of the Marvel artists than the DC artists. But I had a few that I followed. Rich Buckler. There was a few. There was a few that I tried to copy and emulate.
Okay. All right, so we'll talk a little bit more about DC and Marvel later in the interview. So I want to go back to, so you were 14 when you started legitimately illustrating or working for the DC
Well,
Comics
yeah,
book of
when
yours, right?
I was 14, I
And
started working for an artist. I started working for an artist named Neil Adams. Actually, I started working for an artist named Rich Buckler, became his assistant. He was a creator of a character called Deathlock and was one of the major comic book artists in the 80s, 70s, 80s, and I ended up apprenticing with him while I was in high school. Then I went to a place
Mhm.
called Continuity, which was owned by a fellow named Neil Adams,
Mhm.
which is still owned by Neil Adams. And, Neil became a real mentor to me and took me in as a kid. So during my high school years, I was working at Continuity or working for Rich Buckler or working with different artists. So that was how I got my high school credits. I was
Okay.
actually working in a studio. Now I didn't say I was doing good work. I
Wow.
was just working in the studio. There was nothing that was of
I'm
any
just,
merit, But I was fortunate that they let me hang out with them and taught me a lot. I often say when people ask, what was it like? You're 14 years old. You work around the most famous comic book artists in the world, and I was very fortunate. But I said, it's like being raised by wolves because none of these guys, like I wasn't really their kid, but I was there all the time, and they were those figures to me. So it was quite an experience. Quite an experience.
so when you were working with these guys, I mean, how were you looking over
Hmm.
their shoulder and watching what
I
they
was
were doing, or were they actually teaching you process for comic book
both,
illustrating?
both. It was a lot more
Okay.
looking over your shoulder, over their shoulders, and them telling me, "Why are you looking over my shoulder? Go over there and sit in your seat." There was a lot of that, so I didn't really get a chance to do that. And there was some hands-on teaching, but it wasn't a school. It was you pick this up quick. We'll show you once, we'll show you twice, but
Mhm.
you got to get it because they're doing work. You're expected to contribute. So when I wasn't slowing people
Right.
down, I was contributing.
That's great. So what did you do when you got your, so you were working in an
Hmm.
apprenticeship, so it was basically like an
Hmm.
internship, right? You were working for
Right.
credits. What were some of the projects that you were helping out or learning on during
When
that
I got
time?
to
That comic book enthusiast would
yeah,
know.
when I got to continuity with Neil Adams, he was just working on the Superman versus Muhammad Ali giant book he was doing. So when I got
Yeah.
there, I got to see him work on it, and I got to actually touch the cover itself, just touch it, but not put any marks on it. Uh, Most of the stuff we did at continuity at the time was a lot of advertising work, storyboards, comps, layouts, some comic books, but it was a commercial art studio, so they did a lot of movie posters and stuff like that. Basically, I just helped out wherever they needed me. So lay down base color, go out and go to the store and get me a sandwich and bring it back while I draw this beautiful picture that I'm not going to let you watch me do. There was a lot of that. But you eventually you
Uh-huh.
learn. You learn.
Uh-huh.
I was very fortunate to even be there. So
Yeah. You had to
right,
earn your stripes, right?
right. But there wasn't a lot. There was
And
yeah,
back then, I was going to say back then, I mean, that was truly a form of art. I worked in the ad agency business years ago with creative teams in the studio where they were actually using X-Acto knives
that's
to
right.
cut letters,
That's
type
right.
font, and paste it onto.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's
I used to
very,
make
very
copies.
exact and
I used to make
precise.
copies for different artists. Like I had to make photo photo ready copies of their work. Now you can do that. You can scan it. Then it was a photostat machine.
Mhm.
You would literally climb into this
Yeah.
giant man-sized machine, lay the art down on a piece of glass, cover it with another piece of glass, get in the machine, adjust the camera behind in this dark room, adjust the lights, adjust the focus, hit the button, and then 10 minutes later you have your photo ready print. So that was one of my jobs at continuity. That's
Wow.
how long ago it was. Now it's like that piece of equipment took up a whole room. Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
So, okay, so that'll take us into the next question, which is about the process. How does a comic book come together? from concept, storyline, who writes the story, then storyboarding, and then, right over to the illustrator. Like, take us through the life of a comic book to the
There's a
point where it
couple of
gets on the
different ways
newsstand.
it's done. The most common way it's done is, comic books are put together like cars. It's an assembly line process, or like movies, which is an assembly line process. It usually starts with a script or an idea for a script. A writer will write the script out either in plot form, where he'll do like one page, and this happens on this page. You have to fill 20 pages of action from this one page of plot, just kind of make up around the story we're trying to tell, and then they script afterwards. So they would take the pictures and script to the pictures. Oh, well, this inspires me to write this, and this inspires me to write that. But basically, you've drawn their plotted story. Another way is when you get a complete script from a writer, and a writer will write page one, scene one, Batman on rooftop. Show Batman on rooftop, wind whipping around him, bats flying overhead. The rain has just started to fall. Okay, that's panel one. Panel two, point of view over Batman's shoulder as he looks down the street at crime being committed. Old lady getting her purse snatched by thug. Panel three, reverse shot. Thug running away from woman as Batman starts to leap off building. So that's a full script. It'll also have the dialogue. I patrolled these streets of Gotham, all my life, and still I can't stop crime. Batman's thoughts. And then, next panel, caption 2, Batman's thoughts, but this is one thug who will not get away. Panel 3, so that's how a script is written, full script, and then it'll describe everything that happens in the panel, 6 panels a page, 7 panels a page, and you'll have full instructions. So those are basically the two ways that it's done. The third way is when an writer does everything himself, and he's writing it and drawing it and plotting it and doing everything, and different artists work in different ways when they do it themselves. Some write a full script, some write a plot, some just write on the board itself as they're drawing it. There's different ways. I've done all of them.
You've done all of them. So when you collaborate with the creator of a character, let's say, or a hero, do you have an influence when you work with this person on what the strengths are of that hero, what is it about that hero that makes them different? What's their color palette? What is their outfit like? I mean, is that something that you have a say in with the creator of the hero?
Thing is, yes. The simple answer is yes. I do have a say. We're fortunate to have a say. In fact, insist on having a say most of the time. If I'm not the co-creator, which is rare, because most of the time the projects I'm working on these days, and even in the past, has been a collaboration between me and the writer in a true sense, as opposed to me getting a script and writing it. So I usually have a lot of input into what happens. An artist in comics fulfills many functions. He's the cameraman, he's the director, he's a costume designer, he's a set designer. He's a wardrobe person. A comic artist is everything. And so some of that, what you described, is already inherent in the job itself, because it's just what you're doing. When it comes to creating something new, I'll collaborate with a writer, and we'll if he asks me, we'll come up with stuff. If it's a new creation, of course, everything has to be designed from the bottom up. So I'll do everything from soup to nuts on that for real. I'll design, this person's never existed, this character's never existed. So we have to kind of conjure him or her up out of whole cloth. That's my job. And I bring whatever I feel the character needs to be at that time. I'll bring it to that. And then, we'll just go from there. Hopefully that answers the question.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, no, that totally answers the question. Okay, so tell us about your first real the project that you worked on that was your baby, that really kind of put you on the map?
Put me on the map. I don't know if I'm on the map now, but probably the first thing I did that people noticed was a book from Marvel Comics called Power Man and Iron Fist, which is going to be, Luke Cage and Iron Fist both going to be on Netflix. So, as series now. So, that was the start of that whole thing. I got a chance to work on that. That was my first Marvel assignment. I was probably 18 or 19. And that's the one that put me on the map. I think I did that for about a year and a half. My first regular assignment. In those days, in order to be noticed or to be a successful artist, you wanted to get on a series where people could see you every month, month after month, after month after month. 22 pages a month, and they knew where to find you. And then you would build up your fan base that way if you could get one. So I did a lot of that. I was trained old school. You get on a book, you stay on a book, you do the book, you deliver it on time. You'll get your fans if fans are important to you. So that's kind of how it works. And so the first book I did like that was Power Man and Iron Fist, and that's when I first got on the map. We were.
Okay. Tell me about the culture of Marvel or DC Comics. What was it like working with these organizations as an African American, an African American illustrator? How were there a lot of African American comic book artists and illustrators at the time?
There was a couple of things, Vanessa. I mean, when I was 16, 17, my social awareness, color awareness wasn't at the forefront of my mind. What was at the forefront of my mind is doing comic books. Like everybody else, I just want to do comic books like Neil Adams. I just want to do comic books like Garcia Lopez. I just want to do comic books. So I wasn't, there might have been incidences early on. I just wasn't aware of them because I'm just trying to be in the mix and draw comics. Later on, after I got into the industry and had been in for a couple of years, is when I started running into some of the things that one might run into being a minority in an environment that had a lot of majority white people, white males doing this. So I had a couple of things that happened that weren't so great. But nothing that was particularly hard to overcome. And the thing is, I'm here, who I am, and those people who did that stuff, who knows what happened to them. So there you go. It's just like that's the way it really works. Who's standing at the end wins. So yeah, there were some incidences, but nothing that was like so horrifying that in terms of the way I was treated that would make it worth even going into. And other thing is that you're gonna find prejudice in the arts and stuff, but artists and writers and creative people are a little different. So it's a whole different environment anyway. It's not like going into another business where people are straight and they're going to treat you in a different kind of way. Everyone's creative and crazy. So, once you get past that, then you can start dealing with people's color, maybe.
Right.
Once you get past the fact that we're all like geeky comic book artists, then we can start talking about what color we are and all that stuff. At least back then.
Right.
So.
Right. Okay. Well, so then let's talk about how ethnicities were treated in the comic book world. I mean, were there Black heroes in comic books
yeah,
by
there were
DC
a
and Marvel?
few. When I was growing up, there was a Black Panther. There was Luke Cage, Hero for Hire, Brother Voodoo. The Black Racer by Jack Kirby, Gabe Jones in the Howling Commandos. Am I leaving out anyone major? No, that's about it. About 4 or 5. That was a situation that needed to be addressed more so than any personal situation where how people treated me. The fact that there weren't a lot of heroes of color, there weren't a lot of African American heroes, or gay heroes or anything, that weren't white, straight, male fantasy projections. And that's when, that's when my serious work began, when we started thinking about doing those kind of characters.
Now, I was watching an interview when I was doing some research that you did sometime, I think last year, and you said something that I thought was interesting that stuck out to me in the interview, which was, I think some of the Marvels and DC Comics of the world were trying to take the mainstream heroes, like a
Sure.
Spider-Man and a Batman, and make them black
Right.
in order to appeal to ethnic audiences. And you said specifically you felt they were being lazy
It's a lazy way of thinking. Yeah.
about
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
it's a lazy way of thinking. Right. So talk to us a little bit about that. And I guess that's going to kind of lead to your collaboration with
Hmm.
Reggie Hudlin and other partners on the
Hmm.
launch of Milestone
Hmm.
Media. I'm assuming that kind of was the segue to
Yeah.
that
Or my,
collaboration.
or just an opinion. First of all, let's say this. You can't have enough black heroes or enough African American heroes or heroes of color. You cannot have enough. Any new one is good. So if there's a black Captain America, if there's a black Spider-Man, whatever it is, while I think it isn't the most challenging intellectual thing you can do in creating a character, I also feel that all of it's great, all of it's also necessary, and it's all good. So, I should have prefaced my other statement by saying that it's all good. But the second thing is, anytime I see it, I always wince a little bit because I'm like, it's just the, it's almost as if, okay, we're going to give you, and this is not their intention, but it feels like we're going to give you a black Spider-Man, so now everybody can shut up. Y'all got a black Spider-Man, and then black people and African American people are happy because there's a black Spider-Man now, and he's black, blah blah. My basic problem with it always was, and even though I've drawn these characters and I love them, was no, that's a character that was established one way who is now black, and it's the easiest thing to do. The harder thing to do is create something original out of whole cloth. But those are the things that last. Those are the things that stick with people.
Right.
The black Captain America, as great as he is, I don't know if it's going to be one of those mythic characters of all time, like Captain America. The Black Panther, on the other hand, totally original character created by two white guys, Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. But an original character with an original concept and an original way of thinking and approach. Classic character forever. Classic character forever. It was the same approach we tried with Milestone. We wanted to do, even though the archetypes are similar, totally original characters that were created by us. And that way they weren't something else and then they became black. They started out the way they were, and that was vitally important to us. And to me, it's a more honest, more it's stronger characters that way. You'll have stronger characters that way,
Mm-hmm.
and more meaningful and
Mm-hmm.
enduring
Mm-hmm.
characters. Static Shock was created out of whole cloth, but he is not the black version of whatever, of the Flash or whatever.
Right.
He is himself. That's what I meant by
Right.
that. Like, that's kind of lazy. Let's come up with something new, original. We're great,
Yeah.
creative, original, awesome people. We can come up with new characters. We don't have to put on a Captain America suit.
Right.
We could do our own thing. We're good. So that's how I feel. Having done it,
I
I can say like, no, dude, I've done it. So don't tell me it can't be done. We created 50 of these people, 60
mm-hmm.
characters like that. So
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, great. All right, I'm going to kick it over to the folks that are sending in their questions because we have a
oh,
lot
okay.
of them. I still have more questions I can ask, but I'll interject them as I see it appropriate. The first question we have, and I have to hover my mouse over here so I could see it, is from
Mm.
Earl Weaver. Second question. Other than you, Milestone Media, other than you or Milestone Media Cats, I'm probably the most hyped person waiting for some comic book news. I'm gonna throw a curveball at you,
Okay.
Denys. Will ancient Kemet Egypt play a role in Milestone Media 2.0? I asked because you guys are big on history and would be so dope seeing that part of Black history brought to comics in a big way.
There are no plans to talk about ancient Kemet in the current iteration of Milestone, which is not to say that it will not come up, because that is a part of history. But you realize that with Milestone, while there is a history in the past, we're concerned with the future. So who knows what future storylines will who knows what will be in future storylines? But right now, we're not talking too much about Egypt. But you know what? It's an interesting subject, and we should tell, Earl, we should be talking about Egypt some more. You're right. Sorry, dude. My bad. We're gonna fix that.
Okay, great. Let's go to the next question is from Lois
Okay.
Armstrong. One of the world's biggest comic book festivals, Angoulême Comics
Angoulême.
Festival in
Angoulême.
France.
Yes.
I'm sorry if I Angoulême, is that? Oh, sorry. Came under fire and pressure when no woman appeared on its Lifetime
Right.
Achievement Award shortlist. Major names in the comic world like
Right.
Daniel Klaus demanded their names be pulled out, and there was a call for a
Right.
boycott. Hold on one second. Because I have to scroll over the questions so that I can get the full question when they're a little bit too long. Well, why don't we talk about what happened in that festival and what
I'm
your
not
thoughts are on
sure
that?
because I only read a little bit about it, but it was a major controversy in it. This might be the thing where the other artists withdrew, because there was a whole thing where there's this whole list of graphic novelists and people who get the best graphic novel awards and whatever, and all these dudes were on it, but there were no women. And there are plenty of women in comics who are doing great work. They weren't on it, so the dudes pulled out.
Mhm.
They said, you know what, we don't even want to be on this list or part of this party. And I thought they did the right thing. You cannot have any kind of creative endeavor or any kind of graphic novel or any kind of writing or any movie or anything. We ignore 50% of the population, and that 50% of the population contributes probably more than that 50% that we're part of. That's ridiculous. You can't have any kind of thing that means anything if you exclude women from it. You just can't. It's meaningless.
Mhm.
So yeah, I agree with the artist pulling out. I think it was a bad move not to include women, and just not. We don't roll that way. So
Right. Good for you. Okay. All right, let's go to the next question from Xavier. We learned from leaked Sony documents that the Marvel Comics licensing agreements with Sony Pictures for the Spider-Man movies mandate that Spidey should be male, not smoke tobacco nor abuse alcohol, and not be a homosexual. Stan Lee has said that we originally made him white. I don't see any reason to change that. What are your thoughts on the push to change, hold on a second, to change characters' gender,
yeah,
race,
we
etc.?
talked about that a little earlier. Again, you can't have too many black characters. It's the more the merrier. Changing gender like Thor from a male to a female, okay, that's great. I think it's lazy thinking, but I think it's awesome that they're even doing it in Marvel. So in theory, I don't have a problem with it, but in practice, I'd rather create something new, and I think that's really really the way to go. I'm much more excited by seeing new things than someone dressed up as Captain America, like cosplay or something.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay. Okay. Next question is from Annika
okay.
McKay. Question. Even before becoming a celebrated artist or knowing of some of the greats, did you just start drawing before knowing of
Yes,
comics?
I
So
started drawing before knowing of comics.
did.
I did. That's an interesting question. Who asked that question? um, yes, I
Annika
did. I
McKay.
did. I started drawing before I knew what a comic book was. I would draw Superman rescuing a damsel in distress in boxes. I would draw boxes next to one another, box, 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 and I would draw a sequence in it. But I hadn't seen a comic book when I was a little kid. All I saw was the TV box. So I was trying to draw the TV box. And the only way I could do a sequence was to draw the boxes next to one another. And so I started drawing comic books before I saw a comic book. I just didn't know. I thought I was drawing a TV screen and some bad drawings of Superman. But yes, that's a good question. That's a good question.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's a good question. All right, next question is from Jackie Browning. At a recent Comic Con, it was mentioned that you were working on artwork for
Yes.
figurines. How does your approach differ when drawing for a figurine than when you draw for print?
It's a lot more stressful because it was so stressful doing those. Basically, what she's talking about is I've done other designs, but this stuff is for the Milestone line of DC Comics icons. And DC Comics putting out a line of they put out a line of these figures that are about this big. Can't see them on the screen, but they're I don't know 6 inches or whatever they are of their classic heroes, and they're doing the Milestone line of comic books from the first run of Milestone. So I had to redesign, or give them designs for all these characters, and it's different because um, it's a very precise thing that you have to do. You have to get all the proportions right. You know, pretty much the expression you have on that character is going to be the expression that they model. The models are looking for something different than the comic book reader, so they have to turn all your things into 3D forms. So you have to make sure that your proportions are correct and all that. And despite the fact that I designed Static and helped create him, it was still nerve-wracking to draw that for them. Because I'm like, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be perfect. This figure's going to be seen by billions of people. So, pretty sure I made myself miserable doing it. But it's different. It's a different process.
Jeez. Okay. Next question from Annika McKay. Have you ever just flat out vetoed a character and said, I'm not
Yes.
going to draw this. I
Oh,
don't
you
like
mean
this
like
character.
in terms of somebody giving me something to draw and me saying, nope, I reject this script, or
I reject this
based on the
character
fact that
or
he's.
this script.
Has that ever happened? No. I'm too much of a professional. I'll draw anything. Just give it to me and I'll do it. I I no, I can't think of any times right. It's like, no, I got a job. I'm going to draw that job. I can't think of a time that I've
Mhm.
had to do that. By the time something usually gets to me, especially at this point, hopefully no one's going to give me anything that's so
Mhm.
offensive that I don't want to draw it. Like, oh my God, this is really racially insensitive, or this is like, some kind of bizarro thing. If you're going to give me something, you know what you're getting when you're working with me. So hopefully you won't present me with something that I would not want to do. So that hasn't happened. It hasn't happened yet.
Well, maybe if it's not a character that you don't want to do, but a character that you feel you can make
That I
better,
can make better.
or that you can, yeah, that you can elaborate on and transition into something that you think will be more powerful than what you were presented with
I'm
initially.
always looking to improve things, or at least what
Mhm.
I think would improve it. So that's happened plenty of times. Where I've gotten something and I thought,
Yeah.
oh, these other artists thought that they were really doing this character right, but they haven't seen the way this character could really look. So wait until I do it, then they're gonna see how it really looks. A lot of artists think like that. It's a very competitive industry, and I always want to be the best. And I think that if I'm taking a job on, I want to make sure that I leave the room smoking and in flames, and nobody else wants to get on the stage. It's over. So yes, I'm very much like that. I really am. I'm like, no, this it's over. He done burnt the stage down. He's so great. Oh my God, if you follow him, you're just gonna be so lame trying to draw this character after him. I am that guy. And all my friends are like that too, so it's very funny.
You're
Very,
competing, we're
very
competing
competitive,
against each
very
other.
competitive, you know. And it's usually, and it's all in a good way. It's not like bad, but I'm a competitive person. So when I draw something, I want to put the stamp on it, and I want other people to go, well, that's it. We don't even want to draw it no
Yeah.
more. Frank Sinatra sings a song, you're not gonna sing that same song. You're gonna think of something else. You're gonna go
Right.
do something. Miles Davis does
Right.
something. You're like, you know what? I'm not gonna do it if I were a Bell. I'm just gonna leave that alone. Miles did My Funny
Right.
Valentine or whatever. We're gonna leave that alone. I'm not doing that better than him. I want to be like that.
Right.
So,
Good for you. Okay, that's so funny. Next question is from Christopher Sotomayor.
my
Christopher
man.
says there's a trend from bigger publishers to push event crossovers in an effort to fill the racks, but that doesn't grow readership, in my opinion. What is a better approach, and what will Milestone do to grow their readership? And we really haven't introduced
Hmm.
the Milestone and talked a little bit about that, but I guess you can. Why don't you tell us about Milestone and then answer the
Yeah, right.
question as
After I tell you
well?
about milestones, see if I remember the question. Um, okay,
I'll
okay,
ask it
perfect,
again. I'll
perfect.
ask it again. No worries.
Uh, Milestone started in the early 90s as an idea that I had to basically create characters of color in the absence of characters that, look like you and me in comics. And at the time, like I said, even when we started Milestone in the early 90s, there weren't many black characters. It was the same situation as it was when I got into the industry. Sorry about that. When I got into the industry. So the only way to get these characters was to create them ourselves. And I had this idea. I said, I want to create this comic book company that has black characters and it's going to be a black comic book company. That was my major big idea. I called up Michael Davis, and um, him and I spoke about it, my friend Michael Davis. And then we called Derek Dingle and Dwayne McDuffie and a guy named Jim Owsley. And I pitched them this crazy idea. And to a man, they all said, "You are nuts. This is crazy. You're insane. When are we going to do this?" So we all us crazy people got together and we created these characters, came up with a business plan, put together a Bible, a thin, like 40-page document saying this is what we want to do, these are what the characters look like, and this is what we plan. Worked on this thing for about 6 months with um, my partner at the time, Chantal Denys, who should get credit for this. She's the one who really helped bring everything together. But we did this 40-page document, put it in a sealed, bound leather like kind of book, and presented it to DC Comics, where we were all kind of freelancing. I gave it to Paul Levitz on a Friday night. Read this over the weekend, Paul. Let us know what you think. This is what we want to do. Literally dropped it off at the office at 5 o'clock. I'm gonna take it home. Monday morning, he called us up and said, "Come to my office. We have to talk." Get Derek, Dwayne, and I went to his office. I don't know if Michael was there, but went to his office and he said, "I want to do this. How can we make this happen?" We said, "Well, we want to have a comic book company." And he said, "That's a great idea. How can we make this happen?" And that's how Milestone got started. We did this thing, presented to DC, and they agreed to fund it. And um, and then we were off and running. The rest, as they say, is history. Um,
And,
the second part of the
and you
and
had a bit of a, okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Go
no, I
ahead.
was just
Answer
gonna.
the second
I was
question.
just thinking
Uh-huh.
about the second part. Like, what would it take? Do I think crossover events do it, or whatever, in terms of increasing comic book sales? Or I think crossover events are for comic book readers. If you're not a comic book reader, Vanessa, there's no crossover event that's going to make you want to pick up a comic book because you don't even know what it is anyway. So you're like, okay, the
Mhm.
Infinity Wars. Great. Guess I won't be looking at this comic book. I have no idea what's going on. Um, it would seem to me that you would want to make comic books about the things that people are interested in. People, as much as we love superheroes and they're part of our mainstream culture, in order for comic books to grow and evolve, you need to start talking about other things other than superheroes and other than Superman and Batman. A lot of the work that's being done independently is really good. They're addressing different subject matter. But I'm literally talking about doing baseball comics, race car comics, teen fashion comics. I mean, go to where the people are and do comic books about that stuff, as opposed to endless superhero crossovers. So vaguely, as much fun as they are to do, kind of incestuous and insider. And how many more of these things can we do? You know, that's coming from a person who just finished drawing one of those big crossover things. So it's just like, oh God.
Do you find that, before we go to the next question, do you find that movies play a big role in putting comic book characters that somebody like me may never learn about because I don't regularly
Mhm.
read comic books? It's not part of my world. But do you feel that movies really help catapult characters that may just have a life in the comic book world and not
Of course
beyond
they do.
that? And
Mhm.
does that help? I mean, obviously that's kind of an obvious question, but in terms of a crossover appeal, so that it engages more people to learning the importance of this character in your
Depending
world.
on if the character is important. There's that, and
Hmm.
what makes a character important or not
Hmm.
important. Um, Movies help. Movies can take an obscure character and make and get people to notice him. The thing is that translating to getting people in the comic book store? And so far, that has not been the
Right.
case. Because a comic book is really huge, doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to run into a comic book store to get it. Or because comic book movie is huge, doesn't mean
Hmm.
that people are going to run to the store and get the X-Men comic book because they just saw it on the screen. Sometimes that may happen, but it's not the norm. So it's it's the exception is Star Wars. Star Wars comic books do very well. You know, but Star Wars is a perennial property like that, and has a certain amount of appeal, and started as something that was outside of comic books and went to comic books, as opposed to started as comic books and went outside. It started out their comic book
Right.
concepts purely, but they did it as a movie first, then the comics, then more movies. So there's a lot of back and forth,
Right.
as opposed to a property like Ant-Man, which started out as a comic book, now it's a movie. Okay, so people first see it as a movie, but are they
Hmm.
going to go look for the Ant-Man comic book? Maybe. I don't know. Are you going to go out and buy the Ant-Man comic book?
Right.
No. No.
No, but if I had
You might.
children, no, no, but if I had children, I might, go to that, go back from the
Sure.
movie and go to all of the merchandise items and comic books or
But
whatever
then
and
you better
equip
have
month
something
to
there
to
for them,
introduce to my child.
because you're not going to, as a parent, you're not going to
Uh,
go there and buy them the latest crossover event. You just want to issue an Ant-Man that you can give your
right,
kid and go, look, this is an Ant-Man, and you can read it. Good, here. Right? So
right, right.
there's that. But
I don't have children yet,
I
so
don't
I
know.
guess I don't have that issue.
Not yet, not yet. You'll see, you'll see. Milestone was started
Okay.
because,
All right. Let's
Milestone
go.
was started. One of the reasons why Milestone was started was because my son Miles had just been born, and in 1992, and I was like, he was born 91, but 92, I'm like, there are no comic books for him. There are no characters. There are no characters of color for my poor black kid. He won't have anything to read except Superman and Batman. It was really like that. I'm like, if I don't create them, they will not be there for him. So that's where Static Shock came and all that stuff came out of too. That desire to make sure that in his world, by the time he got to be a teenager, there would be these characters, and there were. Worked. Yeah.
Wow, that's fabulous. Well, you know what? Speaking of Milestone Media, one of the other questions I was going to ask you about is I read that there was a unique publishing deal with DC Comics when you negotiated your deal. There were a couple of different things that you were requiring
Right.
in the deal. Do you want to talk
Well, you'd
about
have to tell
that?
me what specific things, but um, it was a unique deal at the time where, I mean, without getting into specifics of the deal, it was unique in that
Hmm.
we shared trademark and copyright. We owned all our characters, and
Hmm.
and profited more so than a regular creator would from their properties because of the deal that we structured. But there was also a price to pay with all that. If you're playing with the Warner Brothers and the Time Warners of the world, there's a pound of flesh that they demand. And we had to pay it,
Hmm.
all of us. In return for that, we had the best distribution in the world, the best awareness that you could get, and massive sales. So um, there was good parts about that. The unique parts about our relationship with DC at that time and even now is that we have complete creative freedom. even more so now than we had back then, and we had a lot then with Dwayne McDuffie, who's a genius, and everyone else. We editorially could do what we wanted to do, or there was no value in having us. You know, if you were going to editorialize us from DC Comics, we were our own creators. We did what we wanted to do. It was what we did then. It's what we're doing now with Milestone. So, in terms of a unique relationship, that was a relationship. You know, we were pretty much autonomous, realizing that, you know, there's certain things that you have to do when you're working with major publishers. Within that, we were completely, it was a unique situation.
Okay. Okay. All right, let's go back to our viewer questions. Next question is from Sean Christopher. Sir, you have been blessed to work with some great talent, Sienkiewicz, Maillard, and I think Kent Williams. The question with Rick Maillard was my favorite work of yours. But who do you think added the most
Rick
to your
Magyar,
work?
my man Rick.
Yeah.
Is that Magyar. Is the question is who added the most to my work? Hello?
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Who do you think added the most to
they
your
all
work?
added something. Yeah, they all added something different. They all added something different. I mean, you know, I was looking at Rick's work recently, as a matter of fact, because he was my first inker on the question. And the amount of detail and the care he put into every panel was incredible. And without him, none of that would have happened on the question. Bill is a genius walking on this earth in terms of an artist. He is just so prolific and great. And the people who are watching this know who Bill is, and he's just a phenomenal artist. And it's a little freaky working with him. I don't mind saying this, sharing with people, because he's so good that you have to bring your A game when you're working with someone that good, or you feel that they're laughing at you when you're giving them pages. Like, I can't believe Denys Cowan sent me these horrible pages. I'm great. That's how you think he thinks, you know. So I'm always trying to give Bill my best stuff. Kent Williams is like, he's like our, he'd hate for me to say this, but he's like our Degas. He is like on that level of just sheer painting, drawing brilliance. So I've had a chance to work with the very best. And I'll tell you, it's a humbling experience because everyone you mention is better than I am. I'm lucky they work with me. You know, they're just incredible. So yes, they all brought something different. No one brought more than the other person. They all brought their unique thing to it. Um, I enjoy looking at it as much as anyone else. So I think they're great, all of them.
Right. Okay. Next question is from Distract. What good habits should a penciler have?
Don't just be a penciler would be the first thing. Learn to ink and color and do everything else. Practice is the only habit a penciler should have is practice. Draw all the time. Draw as much as you can. Draw different things. Don't just draw superheroes. You know, draw from live models. Draw from photos. I'll tell you what to do as a penciler and learning how to do comics that people will not tell you. I'll tell you the truth. Here's what you do, because here's what all comic book artists do, even if they tell you they didn't. Copy other artists and learn what they do because they've done it before. So find your favorite artist, get a piece of tracing paper, put it over that artist's work and go, this is how he drew this head, this is how he drew this leg, this is how he drew this, this is how she drew this is how she drew that. Now I'm learning. Copy. Like you copy a photo, copy another picture. Learn from what they've done. You will eventually find your own style. That's the best advice I can give to a penciler. You should not be thinking just of a pencil, but we should be thinking of art. Study, copy, emulate, learn. Yes.
Good answer. Thank you. Our next question, I think, is your sister, Cecil Cowan.
She's awesome.
Hey, Denys, besides Milestone 2.0, what are you currently working on?
I'm working on a project with Michael B. Jordan, and a writer, Nathan Edmondson, called North. And it's a character created by all of us Actually, Nathan and Michael were working together, and they were looking for an artist to collaborate with them on a project. Michael loves comics but knew nothing about the artists in comics. Nathan, of course, is a comic book writer, wrote The Punisher, Black Widow. He's written a lot of stuff. He gave Michael a bunch of artists to look at. Look at this guy, look at that guy. Michael kept coming back to my work. I like this guy. Who's this guy? He says, this guy's Denys Cowan. He's really expensive. But I like this guy. So I get a call from Michael Jordan and Michael B. Jordan and Nathan saying, can we talk? It was literally like that. And I'm like, okay. We got on the phone, started talking, came up with this concept. A couple of meetings later, North was born. So he was doing the Fantastic Four and about to start Creed when we started working on North. And we've done 2 issues by now, and it's been a lot of fun working with them. So that's one of the things.
Good.
Um,
Okay.
What else am I doing? Just different things. Marvel covers, doing covers from Marvel. I just finished a hip hop cover that was based on. I did the album cover to Liquid Swords, which is the Jizza album.
Okay.
And Marvel recently took all their characters and remade classic hip hop covers out of those characters. So I got to do the classic hip hop cover I did. I got to do it again with Marvel characters. The Liquid Swords cover for Marvel is called Contents of Champions. And so you can look it up. It's like, Iron Man fighting somebody, but it's in the same Liquid Swords poses and everything else, colors, everything. It's great. That's one of the things I've done. There's several other projects that I cannot talk about, Cecil, but but that's some of the stuff that I can share. And of course,
Okay.
yeah,
It sounds like some
that's
really
it.
great stuff.
That's it. I'm not saying again.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the next question from Jeremy Lott. When is Milestone launching its first project this year, and what is
We're
it?
originally supposed to start launch in February, but perfection takes time, and greatness takes time. So right now we're extending it out a little bit. So I think look for something in the summer. Around San Diego Comic Con time. I hopefully that's when we'll have some stuff. If not before then, we'll be teasing some stuff before then. So you'll see some stuff online and different artwork and different patches of story or whatever we're gonna show people. Um, we've been working really hard on all this material for a long time. So when it comes out, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. But it's a little hold tight. It'll be coming along soon. So yeah.
Okay, good. Next question is from Bria
Mhm.
Gaskins. Can you talk a little bit about the Dwayne McDuffie Awards?
Charlotte Fullerton, his bride, will probably be able to talk to address more of what the requirements are and stuff. But having given out the first one, it's an award for excellence. It's an award for excellence in writing, and it's an award for excellence in writing by emerging talent of color. So it's a prestigious award to get, and Dwayne represented the best in writing and creativity, the absolute top. And so if you get a Dwayne McDuffie award, you've really done something in your career. You're awesome. I can tell you that about the Dwayne McDuffie award. It's a very special award that's based on a very special man.
Great. Okay, the next question is from
Mhm.
Quinn McGowan. What influenced your style on your question and later hardware runs?
My art style, different artists. I liked a lot of the Italian artists, Dino Battaglia and Sergio Tolfi and Hugo Pratt and there's some Alfonso Font. There are other Italian artists that I really like. Um, an Argentinian artist. I was influenced by a lot of European art, the way they told stories, the way they did comics. Basically, they learned from American comics, but like their movies, retranslated it with their sensibilities and fed it back to us in a different way. and I liked the way that they interpreted it. So then I took it back from them and made it American again. No, I just used that stuff as a lot of as my influences. So it's a lot of Italian, European artists, some Japanese artists I looked at for hardware in the question. The question is where I made my biggest artistic leap. So I started out one way and ended up almost completely different artist by the end of that 3-year run. So I learned it was a big learning curve, and that's during that run is when I discovered all those artists, those different artists, who weren't American, who weren't John Buscema and Jack Kirby, but told the story in a different way, and they influenced me profoundly. Yes. So hopefully that answers that.
Okay. All right, I'm jumping to the next question because there's so many. We want to keep getting through them. The next question is from JS. Will there be an action figure of Icon's sidekick?
Rocket. Well, I would say there's a very good chance that would happen. But that's all I'll say about it. Very good chance that could happen. Having just designed her, so like we'll see. Hopefully they'll use the design and make the toy. And that would be great.
Okay. The next question is from Earl Weaver. What does a brother got to do to get you Milestone Media 2.0 peeps to come down to Baltimore Comic Con in 2016?
Oh, that's funny.
That's from
funny.
Earl.
Airfare and hotel will usually do that. It's easy to get people when you do airfare and hotel. When you say, "Hey, won't you come to my convention? Drop by," and I'm like, "Well, how am I gonna get there?" "Well, here's our address. When you come by, say hello." I'm like, "That's not the way it works." So, usually an invite will get us down, but we'll need to be certain arrangements will have to be made, or it just becomes prohibitive to go to every convention you're invited to, unless people are willing to do the things that are necessary to get you there. So we'd be happy to do.
All right,
Actually,
you heard
in all
that, Earl?
seriousness, we'd be happy to go to Baltimore Comic Convention, giving our schedules and everything. We'll see. My partner with Milestone right now, I don't know if he's watching this broadcast. He probably isn't, because he's producing the Oscars right now. So yeah, this
Wow.
Reggie Hudlin's an Oscar producer. So he's a little busy. Hard to get him to go to anything. Hard to get him on the phone. So we'll see where we're at by the time Baltimore rolls around. Maybe one of us could make it. How about that?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I'm sure that sounds good to Earl too. All right. Annika McKay's question is, knowing of the theft and recovery of some of your original artwork, have you put any new security into place to keep such a thing from happening again? I know nothing is foolproof, but has it changed your way of securing your original items? Isn't that god awful when you lose your laptop or have everything stolen that you
Nightmare. It was a nightmare.
created? I mean,
What
god
happened
awful.
with that was that I was part of a Steve Jeppy museum. They were doing an exhibition called
Oh, think we lost Dennis there for a second. Let's just give it a moment so that we can get him back online. Sometimes with technology, ironically, we were talking about stolen technology and security. There you go.
Yeah, so
All
what
right.
that was, I was part of the Jeppy Museum exhibit, and we sent some artwork from California to Baltimore. And the artwork did reach Baltimore eventually, but the package had been opened, and literally pages of mine were taken out, rewrapped,
Wow.
and put back in and delivered. So the people who did it knew what they were doing. It was like horrible. It was horrible.
Mhm.
So thank God for Michael Davis, who was one of the curators of the show, or the curator, got on the phone with people, with FedEx, with UPS. The Jeppy people got on the phone with UPS, read everyone the riot act, until they tracked down and found the people who had stolen my artwork, who worked there, got it
Wow.
back, footprints on it and all, rolled up, and whatever they did with it, got it all back and delivered it to my doorstep. Probably like 3 weeks, 4 weeks
Wow.
later, they
That's
found it
pretty
all
incredible.
and gave it back. Yeah, but it was through heavy pressure. What did that teach me about putting security in place? Tell you what, don't send anything through UPS anymore that you even value for artwork. Or if you're going to send something, don't put your real name on it. Like, this is Denys Cowan's artwork inside, because there might be a fan or somebody out there going, "Oh, it's Denys Cowan's artwork." Get it out, tape it back, send it on. Yeah, so I don't really send anything like that. Like, I wouldn't. I'd hand deliver it before I would do that again. That was crazy. I was just like, ugh.
I don't blame you.
Yeah, but I was fortunate to get it back. So, through the efforts of a lot of good people.
Great. Okay, let's go to the next question. Your sister. Hey, Denys. When will these figures come out, and when will you be sending your sister some?
Yeah, right. She doesn't. She doesn't have to worry about getting anything. She knows she gets everything. I have no idea. I know Static is slated to come out. You can probably go online and see Static right now. It's DC Collectibles, and they may have a release date for the Static Shock figure. As for the rest, I'm not quite sure. But probably coinciding around when the books come out, or around that time, there's going to be a lot of different milestone product. So hopefully that'll be part of the lineup.
Okay. Annika McKay says, if you can have your dream team of artists, let's say 10 of them, under your label, who would you choose and how?
That's a good question. There's more than 10. The people we mentioned, my buddies Bill Sienkiewicz, Kent. I love Ken Lashley. There's other artists I love, Sanford Green. I love the writer David Walker, Brandon Easton. I like there's so many different talented people out there that I'd want to work with again. And then, there's a lot of new talent that's emerged. Carrie Randolph is a guy who's just great artist. Um, there's too many. I mean, I could just keep going, just naming names. They're just awesome. So there's plenty of people that I will work with. Some of the people I mentioned have already been contacted, who are already doing milestone stuff as we speak. Who, what the combination is or whatever, can't tell you. But some of these people are already engaged. So the dream team, I'm already working with some of that dream team. There you go.
Okay, thank you. Brent Carter says, this is better than the State of the Union. Thank you, Brent.
Tell Brent, you should be watching the State of the Union, man. Why are you watching me? Oh my God. That's funny. That's funny, Brent. That's my cousin. So he's watching this now. So funny.
That's too
I
funny.
know. My
All
family's
right, let's
hilarious.
go to the next question. Oh, that's family
Yeah,
too.
my
That's too
family's
funny.
crazy.
Um, all right, next question is from
Okay.
Distract. Someone wants to get in touch with you to request and submit a pitch that they own for review or possible consideration. What is the true way to get in contact with your team? How do they propose an
Well,
idea?
if it's going to be a milestone thing, then you can contact us on the milestone.media website. It's called milestone.media. If it's for me personally, you can go to denyscowan.net, which is my website, and leave me a message. You can go to my Tumblr site, Denys Cowan at Tumblr, whatever that is, .com. It's just my name. And leave me a message and leave me, what you want to inquire about, and you want to submit something, or you want me to look at it, or whatever. Those are the 3 ways of contacting me. Pretty easy. You can always, I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I have a Facebook fan page. You can find me if you really want to. So.
Okay. And before we wrap up the show, we'll run through that really quickly again for all the viewers,
Sure.
on how they can follow you and find out what's coming up in with your projects. Okay, let's go to the next question from Atlanta Lamar. You came out as a proponent of Marvel's hip hop variant covers. It seems that there has been a long positive relationship between hip hop and the comic world. Why do you think folks got so upset?
That's right. Well, maybe folks just need something to be upset about.
You hear that?
Because it was one of those things. Can you hear me? Yeah, you can hear me. it was one of those things where I couldn't see what the controversy was about. I thought when they asked me to do the cover, first of all, they asked me to do one of my covers. So they're like, "Can you do your own thing that you did 20 years ago? Can you do it again?" So that was the interesting thing for me. Um, but I thought the controversy was a little fake because I'm like, well, let me think about this. Hip hop artists have always used comic books and comic book lore to inform their music, right? Johnny Blaze, Iron Man, Wu-Tang Clan alone took like half the Marvel characters. You can go on and on, from, being inspired by Marvel and DC characters and doing raps to naming yourself literally after a comic book character that you read in Marvel Comics. Now, as a hip hop fan, you're following Johnny Blaze, you're following, Ghostface Killer, you're following all these people who have been influenced by comics and who have literally. So it's always, comics have always been a part of hip hop. So when comics decide to pay homage to hip hop by putting their classic characters on classic hip hop covers, to me, it's just full circle, and it always was. It was never any controversy. Axel Alonso, the person editor in chief of Marvel, is a true hip hop fan. He's like insane about it. So his heart's in the right place, and everyone who did it's heart was in the right place. It's a great project, and I would do it again. So it was easy to defend since didn't need defending. Comics have always taken from hip hop. Now hip hop's taken from comics. Comics takes from hip hop. It's just full circle to me. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next question from Distract. When you're not drawing professionally, do you sketch or paint for yourself?
Very rarely. Very rarely. It's really strange. And I've always been like that. I've always felt guilty. Like I should be sitting around just drawing pictures all the time. But since I've been doing it for like 40 years, maybe, maybe longer as a professional artist, it's if I sit down and pick up a pencil, it's like work for me. It's like work. Like, oh my God, I can't draw for fun. This is like work. So I tend to do other things when I'm not, drawing all day for fun. It's not like I'm not gonna. It's hard for me to sit down and sketch like little things for fun. I'm like, no, I draw for a living. This is what I do now. So it's too much like work for it to ever be relaxing. It's like work.
Okay. The next question from Florian Lamar. Can you talk about your love of the martial arts?
Sure. I could talk a little bit about, explaining before that I never really talked about martial arts that much in public. So it's a very interesting question. I've studied martial arts since I was probably about 11 years old. And to this day, I'm still studying martial arts. And it's been a passion of mine for a very long time. And, ultimately, martial arts is not about beating anybody up, but it really is about exploring yourself and learning about yourself and your inner self. And I found no better expression, no better way of learning about myself and learning how to defend myself and all those things that come with that than martial arts. Kung Fu, karate, all kinds of different forms I've studied, different systems I've studied. So I've been in martial arts a long time, and it's been great. It's been great. And I practice daily. Practice daily.
Okay, let's go to the. You do. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Um, does your martial arts influence any of the characters that you draw? Like in terms of
Sure.
how
The question was a martial artist, so I got to do a lot of choreography and all that stuff. And I did a whole mini series for DC in the early 2000s called Fight for Tomorrow, which is basically 6 issues of martial arts action, top to bottom. Yeah, I've always used it in my work. I've always used it in my work. So, yep.
Okay. Um, okay, before we wrap it up, I have another question for you. Do you, when you draw your characters, are there any real life people in your everyday life, friends, family, people that you've encountered that influence you when you draw a character in terms of facial features or personality?
I draw influence from everything around me. Hold on. There's somebody at my door. Hold on for 1 second, okay? Don't go anywhere. It's really weird. Hold on.
Okay, we both. That's pretty funny. We're going to be wrapping it up here in just a few minutes when he gets back, and we'll make sure to get all his social media touch points so that we can all follow Denny's upcoming projects as soon as he gets back and tells us where we can follow him on the Facebook and Twitter
That's
and
funny.
email him,
Sorry
particularly.
about that.
That's
What happens?
okay.
This is what happens when things run over time. You see, then I said I start getting deliveries and stuff. That was actually literally a letter from Reggie Hudlin. That's very funny. Yeah, it was. It was a package from Reggie. I'm like, oh, gee, thanks. So sorry about that.
That's great. So we were talking
So what
about
was
so
the
people
question
around
that
you,
I didn't
everything
answer?
influences. So everything
Oh
influences
yes, everything around me.
how
Yes,
you draw the
everything.
character.
Yes, everything. It hasn't been any. There have been people in my life who have influenced different characters. I have a friend named Mike Strafford. Mike Strafford. Mike's one of my great friends. So Mike influenced the character of John Henry in the Steel comic book because I drew a comic book called Steel for DC Comics. I modeled Steel, that guy, in his regular without having the Superman costume on and his regular guys. I modeled him after Mike Strafford. Mike's about 6'4", and um, he's like a superhero. So I do that, but I do that sometimes. But mostly it's just everything around me. Everything around me.
I was asking for selfish reasons because I was hoping maybe I can influence a heroine or damsel in distress in one of your upcoming
We could, yeah,
comic
but we
books.
couldn't do you justice. We couldn't do you justice. See, that's the problem. It would never really be good enough. It would never really be good enough. So that's good though.
All right. Well, thank you so much for.
I'm moving you
Oh,
because
and
my.
one last comment is from
You're welcome. From who?
last comment from Ken Lashley is love this. Tell Denny's I love him
Oh man,
from
that's my man.
Ken Lashley.
No, tell Ken I love him more. So
Oh,
yeah, he's
there
one of
you
my
go,
favorite artists
Ken.
of all time. He's so great.
Annika McKay, still a huge fan and enjoy this chat immensely. Thank you so much for joining us, Annika.
Thank you, Annika.
So this was a really great chat. This was such an education for me, and I'm sure for so many of us watching. Did you have a great time? Will you come back and visit us on
I
iRock
will
Jazz?
definitely come back and visit you on iRock Jazz whenever you will have me. It's been a great experience. It's been fun. Even though the State of the Union was taking place at the same time, I think we actually had the better time doing what we were doing actually. So
I agree. I agree. So why don't you quickly tell us again where we can follow you on Facebook, how we can learn about your upcoming projects and find out what's going on at
sure.
Milestone.
Of course you can find me on Facebook. I have a Facebook fan page, Denys Cowan. It's just my name, fan page. DenysCowan.net is my website. You can find me at DenysCowan.net. Milestone.media is where you can find all the latest Milestone pictures, information, news, so on and so forth. Contact us, Reggie, Derek, or I. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Tumblr. I have all those things. Everything's under Denys Cowan, just my name. So it's pretty easy to find me. At Denys Cowan. Denys Cowan at Tumblr. DenysCowan.tumblr. Whatever it is. So not original enough to come up with a like
Okay.
cute name. Nice.
That's okay. Leave the creativity for the illustrating,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight and sending all your great questions and chatting with us and taking the time away from the State of the Union because we did have a lot more fun here, I
We did.
think, I
Yeah, we did.
hope. Um, Remember, you're not rocking unless you're rocking with us on iRock Jazz Live. So I want to thank you all for joining us on this chat with Denys Cowan. I'm Vanessa Condi, and iRock
Denys
Jazz.
Cowan, iRock Jazz. Thank you so much, Vanessa.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.